Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Katie Harris, owner and CEO of NursePreneurs, and I am here today with Justin Henry, who is the owner and CEO of Life IV Therapy. Did I say that right? Yes. Life IV Therapy.
You did.
IV hydration business. And Justin, you tell us a little bit about your life before starting Life IV Therapy and why you wanted to start it.
Yeah, so my life as a healthcare person has kind of been a little bit different than most. I never really knew what I wanted to do in healthcare. So I kind of was like, let's start out as a nurse's aide. And actually, I started out as a volunteer technically, but kind of like worked my way up to the ranks like nurse's aides, phlebotomist, pharmacy tech, LPN, and now RN. And kind of working my way through, I was like, I never really found what I want. You know what I mean? I love being an RN. I like being a nurse, but nursing right now is in a weird place for all of us. And emergency medicine's always been my niche as an RN. It's what I've always done. And so I was like, I like ER. I like what I do, but like I said, it's a little bit of a weird place. And then IV hydration kind of fell in my lap. I was like, there's so many things we do as ER nurses. We do a lot of the stuff in the ER that these patients probably didn't need to come here for, that they could have, maintained their health and done things as the outpatient, but it just doesn't exist.
Right.
Especially where I live, it doesn't exist. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up in this place.
I was going to say, I can attest to that as well, because back in 2019, I had the worst flu of my life, and my mom kept hounding me. She's like, you need to go to the doctor or get fluids or whatever. And I was just like, no, and they're not going to do anything for me. But then I was so bad, I managed to peel myself out of bed, take an Uber down to, get evaluated in urgent care. And I'm like, I just want fluid. And they came back with this little tiny Evian bottle of water. And I was like, what the F is this? And they're like, well, we don't do IVs. And I'm like, why did I come? I should have just called an IV hydration therapy to come in to my house. I wouldn't have had to have moved or anything. And it wouldn't have cost me as much as it did to go to the stupid urgent care.
Yeah, that's the truth. And one of our medical directors, she's an ER physician, and we kind of were like, we can do this. We can provide the services to the clients that need them, where they don't have to come to the hospital. And even for someone that works in healthcare and has good insurance, it's still really expensive. And I'm like, there has to be a better way. And well, here we are.
All right. So you started in Michigan. Now, Michigan is one of those CPOM states, difficult setups. And, how did you navigate the legal aspect? And was it more intense than you thought it was going to be?
It was super intense, way more than we thought it was going to be. That was actually probably the biggest hiccup of the whole process, because even with our medical directors, they own multiple different businesses not related to this, and they've never partnered with an RN as a business owner. So even the lawyer that works with them and has worked with them for decades now, it's like, I don't have a clue on how we need to get this to go through, because when we initially filed our business license as an LLC, it was quickly shot down because of what we wanted to do. And the lawyer's like, okay. So we tried to file as a PLLC. I was abruptly told by our government in Michigan that RNs are not licensed healthcare professionals when it comes to owning a business with a doctor.
Yeah, they make us feel that way too.
I was like, wow, okay, all right. Well, so we ended up having to do a big workaround where the physicians ended up having to own the business. And then our attorney and lawyer was like, we'll do the business agreement. We'll bring the RN into the fold, because that's really the only way to let legally in Michigan for them to do it. It was a lot of hurdles, a lot of things to jump through. At one point, the state, when we got our PLLC, put me as a physician assistant and pushed that through without even questioning it. I'm like, not quite right. Nope. I was like, okay. But yeah, that was super complicated. Finding a good healthcare attorney is definitely, you can't navigate it without it safely.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's one of those things too that we get an awful lot because, especially nurses, it may be not so much with the nurse practitioners, but the nurses can't own the clinical operations piece of the business. And, a lot of them will freak out. And they're like, oh my God, I can't own my business. And that's not true. So you're standing proof that you can own an IV hydration business, but there is a legal structure that must be respected and put into place properly. And you do need a lawyer to do this. It's not something you go on LegalZoom to just, sign up and
No, I'll be honest. I did look on LegalZoom, even though you told me not to. I did. No, 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 no. It is not possible to do this. And a lot of, I do know of some that are kind of not necessarily doing it the most legal way. And it does, it puts the nurse, your license that you work so hard for, at a huge, huge risk if something, God forbid, was to ever happen.
Yeah, and it will, because those are the people that they're going to go after to start, the people whose legal structure is not set up properly, and the nurse owns the entire business, or whatever. So that is a huge thing. Please get it right. Please please work with a healthcare lawyer that knows what they're doing. And not all lawyers are made the same. And like you said, you had a lawyer that's worked with physicians in the past and still wasn't entirely clear on how to structure IV hydration. So
it took him, it took him like 2 months solid, probably, to finally nail down exactly how to do it, because he was like so careful with doing it wrong. It cost us probably upward of $1,000 to get it, all the stuff done right. But when we actually filed for liability insurance, they were like, wow, you guys have everything exactly as it needs to be. So
yeah, no, that's nice. And $1,000 sounds cheap. I remember every time my lawyer would email me, I would get like $1,000 bill afterwards. And I'm like, what? Just stop emailing me. Stop talking to me. Like, don't do anything.
Right.
All right. So then, did you know your medical director, or was that somebody that you found? And how did, there was an ER doctor, right?
Yeah, so it's a husband-wife duo. They both are physicians here locally. They've worked here basically their whole career. And so, yeah, we've been talking about this for well over a year of we should do this, but it never really came to. And then finally, I was like, are we doing this or are we not doing it? And we all thought naively that this was not a super complicated thing to get going. Very wrong.
You're just gonna do some IVs and take some fluids, like no big deal.
Right. We do that every day. I do that all for 12 hours a day. How hard could this be? But yeah, so it took a lot of time, but yeah, I knew them ahead of time. And that, honestly, you need to have a good relationship with your medical directors, because as a nurse, we think we can do research, and we do research. We do the right things, but having the backing of physicians to be like, well, yeah, but let's do it this way because of da 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 da. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know about that. That's way outside my scope. So yeah, it really benefited.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I don't know about you, but in my nursing school, we maybe went over like one chapter of vitamins and minerals, and really nothing about infusing them. So it's kind of a little daunting, and I can't say there's really great stuff out there either as a resource. I told you we were just in LA this weekend. We were talking to a bunch of IV hydration nurses, and the one's like, yeah, my patient had, we gave him massive doses of glutathione, and then it started affecting their copper levels. And I'm like, I've never heard, like, how do you find this information? Because it's like, it doesn't exist out there.
Right. It doesn't exist. That was something, even with our physician looking into it, it's something they had to do a lot of research on, because it is something that they don't even really learn in med school.
Right.
It's something that you don't do. It's out there. We used Up to Date as a good resource. Our physician has access to that. Nurses can as well if you want to pay the fee for it. But that does, and even that, the clinical resource that they use in hospitals and at ICUs has very, very little guidance. It's very minimal.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely
crazy.
It is crazy. Okay, so how long did it take you from when you said, hey, guys, we're going to do this, to like your first paid customer? How long was your journey?
Basically beginning of October to January 6th. Now, that's faster than most people would believe, but thankfully, with our physicians having their own practices kind of up and running, we were able to kind of piggyback off of a lot of their infrastructure and like client flows and things like that. But it still took a huge chunk of time. And this is me working full-time in the ER and full-time at home, like paperwork, learning and research. It was 2 full-time jobs, and it still is today.
Yes, and it will be for a little while, because there's going to be, you're just going to break even for a while, paying off expenses and, what it took to launch it. So how's it going now? Like what kind of marketing are you doing, and what kind of clients are you getting to come in? Has it been popular?
It has been popular. Again, thankfully, our medical directors have had a huge impact in the community. So they already have a good following of clientele that trust and support what they do. So it did help us a lot, but we do live in a community where this doesn't exist. They've never heard of getting IVs outside of a hospital. So telling someone, yeah, you can come to the office and get an IV, they look at you like you've lost it completely lost your mind. Yeah. And they're like, what? No, you don't do that. No. And then even when they're like, oh, well, there's a physician doing it. I was like, no, a nurse does it. A physician will see you for your consult, but a nurse does most of the visits. And they're like, what? Really? It's a huge education point. And so a lot of our marketing has been educating, our local community that this does exist. This is safe. It is legal. You're not doing something you shouldn't be doing.
We're not in your basement.
Correct. And I mean, we've had clients that have went to other places and they've had different experiences. And kind of the common thing I hear is some of the places don't even know who their physicians are. And that terrifies me as a nurse because my patients ask, who's your physician? They are so-and-so. Would you like to speak with them? Because they're always available, either telehealth or in person. And that for a lot of patients is like reassurance. Oh, there is a doctor overseeing them. You're not just a nurse, which, we're not just nurses, but you know what I mean. But yeah, marketing, education, and then also weight loss. That is a huge thing that we've seen a lot of success with. Olympia just launched their new weight loss combination that they're kind of advertising in a vial. Our physician, one of our medical directors, is a medically managed weight loss physician. So he kind of concocted his own drip that's pretty close to what Olympia offers. And I was like, cool. And that's been hugely successful with the MIC injections as well. Super successful.
Yeah, I did the lipo B12 and it did seem, I didn't keep up with it, but it, it worked it worked with one dose. I was like, oh, I can, I should keep this up. And then I didn't, which I need to go back to it. But it is nice. It is really, really nice. So
it is.
Go ahead.
No, it is. And a lot of our customers or patients or clients, they're like, I don't want a prescription. So these are vitamins and like minerals and things like that. Oh, let's try that. I'd rather do that before starting the prescription from a pharmacy.
Now, are you going to offer like any supplemental services, upsells, memberships, anything like that?
Yeah, so we offer memberships currently. So we offer basic, advanced, and VIP, which provides discounts for all of our drips and our injections. We do have packages right now with the MIC injections. So you can get 4 of them for, I think it's $100 right now we're offering, just to kind of get people to understand and educate. And I know with our medical directors, like, well, that's a lot of discounts. Well, we have a lot of education to go. And that's, as nurses, what our strong suit is educating our patients. That's what we do. I was like, once we get the education rolling, yeah, it'll really work out. And we do consults is another huge one that's been super popular, is just talking with our physicians. I'm like, if you talk with our physician and you book your infusion, it's free. The physician consult was free. Mm-hmm. And that every time everyone's like, yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to the doctor and get an infusion as long as my consult's free. Done. Our docs don't mind.
Oh, that's a great idea. I never even thought of that. And how'd you come up with that idea?
Our doc, actually, he was popping in and seeing patients and he's like, should I like consult this and like make this a note? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you should. Because he's like, I'm like putting notes and he's like, we should make this a consult and patient can come see me first. I was like, if that's what you want to do, sure. And so a lot of our patients, they'll come in, they'll see him or her, their husband, wife, and then they will schedule their infusion for same day or down the road. And the consult was free. So far, we've had no one that's ever paid for their consult. They're always like, yeah, I'll get an infusion.
But that's nice. Yeah, I mean, that's really nice. So, one of the things, especially with these IV hydration clinics, I think the key is getting people to come back. And I mean, you're relatively new, but have you put something into place to encourage people to come back? I mean, the membership certainly would help.
Yeah, so on our receipts, we have a discount code. So when you come back to your next visit, you get 10% off your next visit. That has worked. We do duo infusion. So if you bring a friend, doesn't matter if they've been here or not, you get a discount. And so we have a lot of people that are like, hey, I've checked this out. Why don't you come with me my next visit? And that's brought in a lot of new clients because they're like, I get returns. And even in 3 weeks, we've had quite a few that have come back already with a different friend. So now I have a new client who then brings another friend for the discount. And that's kind of just keeps bringing and bringing and bringing. And the word of mouth especially has done super, super well. And having the physicians to kind of recommend that, hey, you probably should get this MIC injection weekly, or you should probably get this infusion. Seems to be far more moving than as a nurse, where I'm not one with some infusion clinics. The nurses say, well, you should get this weekly. Personally, as a nurse, I err on the side of caution that I don't really want to be considered prescribing, and it's not, but it's a gray area, and I stay far away from that. I'm like, this is recommended guidelines. do with what you wish.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, and the whole IV hydration, business out there is in a gray area, and it's constantly evolving. That's why we're constantly talking to lawyers and medical director groups and other like seasoned IV hydration business owners who have been in the industry for the last 10 years. Just, what's different, what's changed, and there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that's changing, and like we talked about in the beginning, the first big piece of that is really getting your legal stuff in order, getting your medical director that you're comfortable with. And then what about kind of like the back end of stuff? So setting up systems and collecting payment, was that difficult for you? Or
Yeah, I've always been tech savvy. So getting
okay.
everything set up, it was easy. However, it was still cumbersome for me because
Right.
you have like Google Workspace, and then you have your EHR, and then you have your payment software if you're using a different one, and then you're having this and that. And then making sure, where I fell into some pitfalls in the beginning before we even launched, was this isn't actually HIPAA compliant. And some of the stuff that they advertise you find online isn't. And people are using that software. And I'm like, whoa, you don't think about it because you think of like, oh, salon EHRs or salon softwares. Oh, I could do it. It would work for this. It would, but it doesn't technically meet the HIPAA compliance that you do need to meet to be safe. So that was a huge component to check that.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point because, while technically we're not, as a cash business, you're not adherent to like necessarily the insurance guidelines and technically HIPAA, but those are gold standards, right? Like that is something that could change on a dime, tomorrow or yesterday, and nobody told you, and now all of a sudden you're responsible for it. I mean, when you're dealing with patient information, it's really best to err on the side of what is the best standard that's out there that people that I can follow.
Yeah, and that's definitely what we did with all of our forms and our consents. We modeled it off a private practice physician. It's a little overboard sometimes in some things, but it provides us peace of mind that if things do change down the road, we're already there. We're already meeting those compliance standards. There's nothing that needs to be adjusted. And patients, I know some patients do find, and they've voiced appreciation that they're like, wow, I'm actually signing a HIPAA consent form. I'm signing a waiver, a release of information. Well, this feels like I'm at a doctor's office. It's like, well, we do mix. It's IV hydration it's a med spa for lack of a better
Right.
way to put it. We don't have our own home. And so there should be the medical and the spa combined. And I feel like that's where we push to make sure everything is legally covered as possible.
Now, is your practice inside of their medical practice, or did you carve out a section of it and did you make it spa-like, or is it just kind of like the normal office?
Yeah, so their office, they work, one does occupational medicine, one does obstetrics and weight loss. So they kind of have their own office that's like segregated, but they have some rooms that they had already set up as like a spa-like field for Department of Transportation, for people that have high blood pressures or shy bladders. They kind of made a nice spa, relaxing rooms already for them. So we kind of just piggybacked off those rooms to use those as IV hydration rooms. At the rate of growth, if this continues, we will most definitely need our own space because we're already starting to like bump into each other. We're like, hey, I got
It's only
clients, I
been
got to
3
move.
weeks.
I know, and that's the thing. We're like, all of us were like, this is not no. It's something that we did not imagine to grow this fast. Honestly, it really wasn't. I'm like, when I log into the schedule every day, I'm like, oh, I have a new booking. Holy mother, which is great. It's just like, whoa. And a lot of patients like, I didn't know this was available. I'll do this.
Right.
I didn't know. Yeah.
So what are you going to do about your full-time nursing job?
So that's where I've already started to come to I don't know what I want to do, I'll be honest. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that. They love their full-time nursing job. I don't know, honestly. I love the business aspect of this job. I love what I do here, and I love this. This is going to be, my focus. But leaving the bedside completely, I haven't fully decided what I want to do. It's tough to walk away from that's been me. I'm an ER nurse. That's my everything, to say I don't want to do that anymore at all, So I don't know. It's fun because this business does allow you to have the flexibility of doing both, of having the ability to work that job and do this on the side. And then a lot of places hire, like they already do hire 1099 contracted people for their other businesses. And they're like, that is something that we could do as well, to let you keep your full-time job or whatever you want to do, and still be able to do this as well.
Yeah. And as a business owner, do you guys have yourselves on payroll already, or is that something that you'll think about later? Or
Yeah, so we kind of came to the agreements. I know that was a conversation that we actually didn't bring up. It was actually the lawyer brought it up to us, and he goes, "Hey, so how do you guys plan on paying yourselves? Because you guys have not discussed it. You didn't even put that in anything. You guys, no one's getting paid right now. So who wants the money eventually?" Because we were like, "Oh, we'll just bank all the money, put it back into the business, and blah 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 blah." Because we don't need, that's not sound like you're rich, but we don't need this income right now. Clearly, I've been able to support myself with my other job. And so we're like, oh, we didn't really think about that. So we kind of set it up where we can draw as much as we felt we wanted when we want to based off of our business agreement. And that is something to tell other people that want to do this. Make sure you have a really good business agreement, because I've known a friend that got into this in a different city and she got burnt horribly because she didn't read the contract. She didn't read the fine print. Her medical director did everything and she signed it. And unfortunately, it did not work out for her.
Director's favor. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a tough one. And, to that point too, about paying yourselves, I think it's really, really important, because I know in my business for the first couple of years, I was scared to death to take any money whatsoever. But I mean, you just start burning out on the business too. Like, you're paying all these other people to do stuff and you're like, I don't make any money. I'm like, this sucks. I could just work overtime and be done with what I'm making here. But I think it's a really important thing to think about. And also, when you have partners, to really make sure that you're clear on what are business expenses and, what you're able to draw. Because, your partner might think that their Mercedes is a business expense compared to like your Hyundai or whatever.
It's true.
And those come off the bottom line profit. So
they do. And separating personal finance and business finance was something that, for me, this is my first time like owning a business. I didn't make that mistake because they're like, FYI, we're going to keep it perfectly clear, because if you don't, it can come back to be very nightmarish, especially after your first year of business, when they're like, you've been using your checking account for all of your purchases.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, you're already busting out of the place that you're in. You've only been there for 3 weeks open. But was there any kind of like big master plan to have like 20 locations, 20 states, or, was it just kind of like, let's see how this goes?
Absolutely. Let's see how this goes. Everyone has a pipe dream. I feel like this is going to be huge. I'm going to be the next big business in the world. I think everyone that owns a business thinks that. Is it possible? Absolutely. If you dream it, it can happen. I believe. I truly believe if you want it, it will happen. But a lot of work and making sure that you're compliant, because the larger you get, the more eyes on you. That are they really doing what they're supposed to be doing? And especially your competitors, because once you start pulling their clients, which we've already had a few move. And I've had some emails already. It is what it is, and especially when your prices are different. In a lot of places, I know our prices are cheaper than a lot of places. But again, you have to not base off what you see online, or like our 45 minutes from us are all metro cities, so their prices for this are much, much higher than ours. Most of the time, almost double. They can definitely get the clientele to pay 200 plus a drip. They are not going to pay that here.
Right.
Not a chance. And so, working with that, making sure you work with your clients.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the reasons to do like what you're doing over purchasing a franchise or something, because the franchises tend to dictate those numbers, and if you're in a small town, they don't work. Like, those numbers don't work, and you need to be able to be fluid with your audience. So
yeah, that was something like in the course that talked about farce, using those for your pre-made drip bags, because you don't have to worry about the compounding, because that within itself is a nightmare to figure out what does your state do for compounding. And that just was not going to be feasible for us for the bottom line where we live, because we can't bring the prices up to make it worth it to use those pre-made bags or have a compounding pharmacy compound for you. So it definitely takes a lot to figure out what is the price point that people are willing to pay. And a lot of times just talking with people, talking with friends, talking with family, just kind of bringing up like, what would you pay for this service? What would you feel is a reasonable price? Obviously, you can't always do what they want, but it gives you a good idea.
Yeah, like $10. No, that's not going to work.
The cost of saline was just slightly less than that. Okay.
Yeah, I remember when I, started looking into this, like it was like 2012, 2013, the bags were like $2 or $3. And in my mind, the bags are still $2 or $3. And I'm like, and people are like, no, that's not saline anymore. So
no, it's not. A lot of things, I think a good thing to say to people too is that when you do this business, your presentation and your appearance is huge. We went to different events and I had name tags made and the shirts made, and it seemed like frivolous expenses, but it's actually a lot of clients are like, wow, these people are professional. They have a name tag with a photo on there. I'm like, it cost me $20 for 4 of them. It was super easy to make and super affordable, but it draws people's attention. They feel more comfortable.
Yeah, that's huge. That's why we tell people, like, you want a nice website. You don't have to spend $10,000 on a website, which is what, a lot of people charge, which is ridiculous. But you do want, when you're putting your brand together, you really have to think about how you want people to feel and what they want to experience, because it's not the logo and the font and the colors that make your brand. It's how they feel when they interact with your brand. And if you're putting out a professional front, I mean, you don't have to be cold and aloof and corporate, but, just clean and put together and look professional, and then project your vibe. That's your brand.
It is 100% is.
So, all right. Well, this is amazing. This is really exciting that you were able to get all of this done. And I have to say that's one of the records, that I've seen in our course is 3 months, like October, November, not even, like barely 3 months. And now you're like busting out of the seams of your own facility in Michigan. A lot of people do take a lot longer, so 6 months to really kind of pull it together. Some people get stuck on the legal stuff and can't move past it. But I mean, you're just I guess a token of success for people to look at.
No.
Inspiring. It's inspiring.
No, I don't want people to be like not inspired because we did it so fast, and maybe they're not. Again, my story is different because I had the access with the physicians. And that's another thing. If you can get good relationships with medical directors, a lot of them already know they're lawyers, accountants. They have those connections. So if you can work with one and get one to work with you, and I can't stress enough. I see it a lot of the Facebook groups. Oh, I found my medical director online. Okay, that's okay. But you need to make sure that you have that good relationship with them, because there's going to be a lot of emails, a lot of text messages, a lot of phone calls at weird hours of the day going, hey, we have this we need to deal with, and I need you to help me. Because ultimately, at least here in Michigan, I can't do this on my own. They have to be unsupportive of everything that I do. And so having that good relationship has been why we could do it this fast. They were able to use their connections and my drive to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, we even say this in some of our other courses is, your business relationships, that's like 90% of the business. And it's a lot of it's the same as in the hospital, right? Like how good of a nurse you are depends on who you know and what you can get done, quickly. Like I could always get patients down to CAT scan super stat because, I was friends with the radiology tech. Why was I? Because, that was a good relationship to have. So I made those relationships, and it's going to be the same in your business.
Absolutely. So, that's the same thing in the hospital for me. I want to learn as many roles as I can and be friends with people, not necessarily friends, but just acquaintances with everyone. And help. Yeah. And it helps if you understand their role as much as you can. Because if you understand a little bit of how their job works, you can make their job just a little easier. They'll help you out in the long run.
Right. Absolutely. Well, all right, Justin, this was fascinating. I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.